Heather Hansen O'Neill, welcome to the show. I love when we get to talk together. You and I have lots of fun, and the places that we go are inspiring. So it's great. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I was excited to come on and continue our conversation. I love it.
We've had some podcast time together, and we've covered just a plethora of great topics. And as we do this work, I noticed that great coaches like you really help bring today. I really feel like people are more overwhelmed than ever, and you are really bringing some insight into their lives. The work that you do really does change people's whole existence. And so I really want to say thank you. It's an amazing body of work that you have.
Thank you. It's what helps me jump out of bed in the morning. I love what I do, and I love the people that I do it with and for. It's a joy, and that's what I help other people do, is to be able to live that kind of life of service, but still really coming back home to your heart and to the core, the foundation of who you want to be.
I think there's a lot in that statement right there, right? Coming home to ourselves and that core, right? That core, our core values and principles. A lot of that stuff seems to have gone by the wayside in lieu of making money and things and stuff. I just noticed that people seem to have lost that center of a self.
Yes. Yes, I agree with you. And to come back to what you had said when you opened us was about how the world is right now and how everyone is feeling so much isolation and pain and suffering, and to keep moving forward can be difficult, right? When change is all around us all the time, often external to us, and we feel out of control, like you're in a whirlwind. And so that's why it becomes even more important to honor ourselves, what we need, that self-care, to come back home to those values so that you remember every day why you do what you do. You remember who you are, and you don't get as caught up. And I say as caught up because we're still human beings, right? But you don't get as caught up in the chaos, and you can show up better.
No matter how much I'm always amazed, and sometimes I actually freak myself out by, just noticing that even with all the work and I've done on different work and by myself and all the work, all the different work I've done, the people that surround my life. I have an army of people that surround me, and I still have moments when I
Mhm.
just get overwhelmed and life takes over. And it's usually around a couple key places. I notice hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or
Yep.
that's a good one. It seems like those are danger, 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 danger. Those are ones
It-
I got to really watch out for. Um, and
In particular, for me, it's the hungry one. I have been called hangry on occasion, and the people closest to me who like to add a little humor just kind of throw sandwiches at me when I get cranky.
hey, my wife will laugh and she'll tell you, every 17 and a half minutes, if I'm not thinking about food, I'm heading down there. But getting that or tired, right? Seems like
Yes.
tired is another one that if I'm
Mhm.
traveling, I'm off my sleep patterns. Really just checking my body for going. Okay, look, am I comfortable for human consumption at this point? Am I able to be in a spot where I'm supportive to others? And then there are times when I think to myself, yeah, just watch it, right? I got to move a little slower, right? I'm a little bit more tired than I normally am. Now would be a good time for instance to pay attention to the words that I'm using and speak a little slower so that I don't get ahead of my brain and all of a sudden I can mess up relationships.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that when you come back to remembering how important your relationships are, sometimes we mess up. We get a little bit curt with someone because we've forgotten the very, very important thing of, I care about you. I care about this person that I just made that curt comment too. So if that does happen and your humanness comes out, the faster that you can remember and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That was not me. I'm a little bit tired. Doesn't make it's not a good excuse, but thank you if you can just understand and forgive me this, and I'll try harder next time." Because that can just instantly resolve. So instead of it festering, right? Have you ever had a situation where something got out of control, you didn't take a moment to make an amends or to, say I'm sorry, and then it just gets completely out of control?
It happened, that's happened a lot through my life, and there are times when I'm better at catching it and stopping it, but there's other times when I'm like, yeah, I get the efforts, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'll lose my
Yeah.
ability to go back and say, yeah, I didn't mean to say that, right? Something triggered. I got to really look out for those triggers, and
Yes.
today I can notice it. How do you start to realize you're in a triggered state? Really, where
Mm,
there that's a good spot to talk about because a lot of times I'm in a spot where I didn't even realize that I did that. Something in the conversation that stemmed from my past or whatever. What causes that triggered state?
That's a really good question, Anthony. And I think that, for everyone, they need to become aware of what it is for them because everyone has different triggers. And I think aware is the key word in that because I spend a lot of time helping people to become more conscious of themselves. And that starts with that awareness of, you know, what am I feeling? How am I reacting? What am I basing my decisions and my actions on? And oftentimes, because the brain tries to make our lives easier, right? And so we go into these patterns and we make a decision or take an action based on a pattern, a habit that we've created. And when we become conscious of them, we recognize that maybe all of our beliefs aren't true. They may not even be ours, right? And so when we can become aware of what they are and then look at it and say, is this belief serving me and others? Great, I'm going to keep it. If it's not, I get to choose to let it go and replace it with something more empowering. And so that constant, just like you would train for a marathon, just like work on making your body healthier, you do the same thing with consistent actions as it relates to your mind and body and soul connection, right? So meditation can help, or just taking a couple of minutes to check in with yourself. How am I feeling? And what am I basing this next decision on?
I find life surprise. Just the amount of stuff that comes at us. You know,
Yeah.
I think there's where, as a whole group of people around the world, just the amount of things that are coming at us at any given time today is so overwhelming that I'm trying to process it all, right?
Mhm.
And then my reactions at the same time. And there are so many things that are embedded in that. When you talk about getting conscious, right? Getting to a more conscious state. There are so many things that took me to be unconscious, right? I can remember as a young man just in my first years of life, really in discovery, right? I
Mhm.
I don't know how conscious I was. It was just more of kind of just stimulus, checking out the world. Oftentimes it felt like a dog walking in a field and just running around, just overwhelmed by sensory overload, right? And just
Mhm.
sniffing things and checking things out, and life was there, right? And it wasn't real. I didn't have any real appreciation for the items. I just was more in discovery. And as I
Mhm.
start to really look at as I get older, a lot of the stuff that I have in my experiences that there's more abundance than ever before, right? I was telling someone the other day, I went to Costco to buy some food. And I walked out and I was at the checkout line, and the lady says to me, "Sir, we sell those in 12 packs. You have to buy two." There were like these muffins, these big giant
Yes, yes, yes.
size your heads. And then she's like, "Yeah, you have to buy 12 of those." I'm like, "I have to buy 12?" She's like, "Yeah, you have to buy 12." I'm like, "Well, why don't you put them in packs?" Well, that way you can mix and match and do it. I'm like, so now I just found myself going, I had to buy 12 muffins, right? I mean, so our world today is so abundant.
Yes.
Sometimes I don't notice that, right? And sometimes I can get overwhelmed and I can feel like
Mm,
I don't notice that. But
yeah.
the truth is, today there's more things for me to pick from than society has ever had options to do that. But when I get in that fear stage, or when I start to shut down or get triggered state, the world kind of closes up,
Yes,
right?
yes.
My ability to see that, to
Mhm.
experience it as abundant, isn't
Mhm.
there.
Yeah. You know, I love that you're bringing this up, Anthony, because I spend a lot of time with people on this whole shift from fear uh, to abundance, or from lack to abundance. And I have a way that I describe it. And when we get where we don't feel like we have enough of something, right? We don't have enough attention. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough of whatever it is that we want. What happens is that we clutch to what we do have, right? We hold tight to it. And that's that lack mentality. Because what happens when an opportunity comes along and you're in a clutch state, there's no room for it to come to you. So I say you have to start from the abundant state, right? And release clutching before you think you're ready. And that's why you have the space for new opportunities, for more money, for more clients, for more love to enter your life. You have to do one before the other, and it's uncomfortable. It's
Mhm.
uncomfortable.
For sure, I noticed that, like having
Yeah.
making that shift, right? But there's where I find, if you're going to be a leader or a team, or you're going to work together, if we don't make the shift, it makes it difficult to create ideas, solutions, or opportunities.
Yes.
When I'm
Yeah.
in that scarcity mentality, I have to, or even if I get into protection mode. In fact, one of the real reasons why I believe why we have multiple lives, to me, why I have this big belief about that, is that because at some point we go into protection mode, right? We
Mm.
started off as this young, really exciting discovery mode, and then we get into a real active mode where we really take what we've learned and bring that in a possibility and really creation mode part of my life. And then as I get into an older age, I start to get more defensive. Like, I kind of want to go out to pasture. I stop getting creative, and I don't know where that came from. It's just somewhere someone told me that when I retire, I'm supposed to go out and do nothing and wait to die.
Ah,
And it's about, my wife's like, bah humbug. You will never ever be able to do that. You are
no.
just who you are. And as we start to make that shift and notice that I don't have to go sit and wait to, I don't have to go to purgatory and wait to die here.
Mm-mm.
I can live in, I can be discovering all the way through and being creative all the way through
Yeah.
my life.
Yeah.
Um, there.
You know, I love that because, and that's, I spend a lot of time with people who um, are the antithesis of that. You know, like so my co-author for my newest book, Where's the Office, is 93. He's actually going to be 94. This is a good reminder for me to send him his present in just a couple of weeks. And so, you know, writing your first book at 93, that's pretty cool. And he's already talking. He's so excited about the process that he's like, we got to write our next one, you know, and he's ready, and it keeps him stimulated and energized and contributing. Such a wise man. Also, like my boyfriend is a bit older than me, so he's retired. Retired means you're going out to pasture, please. He constantly has something going on. He's in a band, he's doing this, he's doing the other thing. It's like craziness. So that's what's different now. You know, the longevity that we have, the energy that we have if we take care of ourselves, mind and body. You don't have to follow what used to be. You get to create your future, right? That's what this is all about. We get to create our futures.
That's something that's exciting, right? To create a future where that pulls me into it, not something where I go on this defensive mode and I'm kind of just, hold on, I got to make sure I don't spend too much money in my retirement. Right? That whole piece seems, you know, not real exciting. But as I can move into a life where I get to spend time with my grandkids, my family, right, to really continue to travel with my wife, as I take care of my body. And today I have, we do so much great work on things like mind, body, and soul, right? We know that that's the effect it's going to have for the next 10 years, right? That we know that, the work I do today really echoes in my future, right? As I start to look at, all right, how are we treating this vessel we call a body? Am I,
Mhm.
putting bad gas in it? Am I not maintaining it? What are the things that I'm doing that are, really creating a future that I can live powerfully into? And as you talk about your co-author in your new book, that's exciting, right? To me, she's writing a book at that age. They're, you hear it all the time. Those are the folks who are really, taking the wisdom of their life, and that's the gem to find, right? That's why books like that are just, they're such gems to pick up and really be able to as my friend used to say, sop up the wisdom,
I
right?
love that. Yes.
Yeah, it's like an old like a pasta bowl at the bottom. You get the three-finger swipe. You just wanna sop up
Yeah.
that wisdom. Yeah.
I love it. And the I got so much out of this writing process with him. The other books I wrote by myself, but this one, that collaboration and just hearing the wisdom, the stories, and how something he thought of 50 years ago is so relevant today. Those conversations have been, something that I carry in my heart all the time, because I feel like it was a gift that I was given in being able to work on that project with him.
And as we look at this, so where do people check out, right? I think it happens
Mhm.
in business, in
Yeah.
life, in relationships, that we get to the place where we start to act like we're overwhelmed, right? We start
Mhm.
to get in that I don't knows, right? I don't when it comes to answers. One thing I know about the human is that when I'm really in tune with myself and I'm not emotionally checked out, right? When I'm physically sober and also
Mhm.
emotionally sober,
Yeah.
I'm connected to all the wisdom, and I'm a immensely creative being, right?
Yeah.
I have, the human is the most adaptive, creative being on this planet. It really is amazing the things that we can do,
Yeah.
right? When I don't check out, right? When I really stand in, I maybe it's uncomfortable for a minute, right? As I go there, and as we evolve from one part of our life to the next part, or one part of our business to another part, or one part of my relationship to another part, I could stand in. Okay, it might be uncomfortable for a moment, but if I stay there and really not check out, don't get into I oftentimes feel frustration
Mm.
or any of those kind of emotional um, checkouts that we
Yeah.
do,
Mhm.
anger, frustration. It can be around I don't knows. Uh,
Yeah.
if I can stay away from going there, all of a sudden the things that open up in creativity, I can bring billions of ideas to a solution where one didn't exist.
Right.
I think there's the magic of standing in that emotional sobriety or standing in that space
Mhm.
of okay, I'm now entered another phase of life. I'm expanding, and the new part of that organize of my new being is going to take a minute, but that's
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I wasn't taught that that was okay early on.
Oh,
I kind of I distracted anytime I was uncomfortable.
oh my gosh. We must have had a similar background, Anthony, because I was not taught some of these skills either. And, to the defense of the environment and my parents and all of that, we teach what we know. And so that probably came from other generations, right? But what we are starting to learn now is that ability to sit with it, that ability to be okay being uncomfortable. And I'll tell you, it took me too long, what I consider too long to come to this, because when I was going through my divorce years ago, my girlfriend, who happens to be a therapist, I was walking with her. Everybody should have a therapist girlfriend. So we were walking and chatting, and I was talking about, what I was feeling at that moment. And she said, Heather, why don't you just try to sit with it? And I literally couldn't understand what she was talking about. Like, what, just sit with it. No, I have to do something. I'm an action oriented person. But that pause to be able to look at the situation from various perspectives, to let go or allow myself to work through the emotions so that I can release the extremes of the emotion and be able to see with more clarity. She was spot on. Unfortunately, it took me a little bit to take the advice, but I did finally take the advice. And in doing that, that ability to be okay with being uncomfortable settled into me. And I think that you mentioned that there's two reasons, I think, why people get stuck. And they seem to be the opposite of each other, right? People get stuck often because they're in that stress state, what you were talking about. There's so much going on. There's a lot of chaos in the world. Everybody, you have a million things that you have to do. There are a million opportunities of how to get things done, technology overload, all of this. That's one reason, because you just have to pull back. I've got too much stimulus. But the other side is just as dangerous. The desire to be okay. When we become complacent, when we're okay with being just okay, we don't take any actions to improve our lives.
Ah,
And there's so many opportunities to do that. So I think we need to be aware of both.
just give me a little bit more on that. So to just be okay, to just
Yeah.
be okay, or
So
just
so if you have a job that's okay,
yeah,
do you go out actively looking for something else? I mean, it's okay. My boss is a little bit of a pain, but it's okay. I make okay money. I can pay my bills. Maybe I want more out of life. Maybe I want to do more things or travel more, but I'm okay. I'm comfortable. So you
never.
don't do anything about it. I have an okay relationship. And I'm using these as examples.
No,
I don't do those things because I have learned that okay doesn't work for me. I don't like to be complacent, right? But if I have an okay relationship, this is a nice person. I love them. How do you miss out on romance and excitement and deep love and affection if you're okay with being okay, you
no,
know?
or just you get a little. It's not lazy, but maybe it is. I mean, I,
Yeah,
I I have to admit that there are times when I rest on my laurels, and I think
yeah.
to myself that that's going to feel good, right? But ultimately, somewhere in there, the other end of that becomes extremely frustrating, right? It happens in business all the time where if somebody else is handling that, I'll just kind of sit back here. And I just went through that with a region, and somebody else was handling the Western region, and I didn't check in on them. I'm like, I'm too busy handling this other side of the country. Some more work that was happening over there, and it was amazing how fast that team was growing. I was excited. I spent a lot of time and effort really working on that team, and I took my eye off the West team.
Yeah.
Right. I know that my responsibility is to really be with them as well. Right. And all of a sudden I went over there and it was red alert. Right.
Mm,
There was problems and team members were falling apart and there was fighting from inside and just there was a lot of drama that happened. Right.
mhm,
When I rest on my laurels, right. When sometimes I get um, I, I don't do the work I need to do. I then find out that the effect of that gets dramatically worse.
mm,
I'm going to go back a second. You talked a little bit about being able to think, right? I mean, finding that spot that where I know one of the things in your book we talked about your inner GPS, right?
mhm.
Finding that inner GPS portion of it. How do you find that, right? As you're stepping back a little bit to get out of the race, just to be able to spend a minute thinking. Great leaders that like guys like Warren Buffett to say, hey, look, if a leader's not spending a couple hours a day just thinking, not doing, just thinking,
Mm,
and they're probably not doing a great job of leading. I feel the
mm,
same thing about ourselves. When I'm just in reactive mode all day,
mhm.
right? It's very difficult for me to see or even know my inner GPS as you talk about.
Ugh, okay, so you cut right to the thing that I have always struggled with, Anthony. So I grew up in a world where I'm told like you have to work harder than anybody else, and you got to be going. I work 2, 3 jobs, and later than longer and harder and stressed out. So I'm this being that spent many years kind of just like a pinball, right? Constantly doing. And this concept of taking the time to step back and think things through um, was a little bit foreign to me for a very long time. But when you do that, when I did that, when I was able to incorporate that time that I needed for strategy, that time to fill the well, to rejuvenate, that time to really look at what I wanted, and that inner GPS, that if you're not clear on what you want, you're never going to be able to get there. It's like, what are you going to put into the GPS? An actual GPS, if you have an estimated address, are you really going to get to where you want to go? So it's the same thing. And I found, thankfully, it took me a long time, but I found that when I do take that time, and for me, that time happens a lot on the beach. But when I take that time for myself, my productivity increases, my focus and clarity increases, my profitability increases. I'm more energized and happier, and I never would have thought that, because I valued this frenetic state of being. I did be doing more all the time. But man, it actually gets me way more when I stop and think it through and envision and take right actions instead of just any action.
Well, I sometimes even find that I'm addicted to the frenzy,
Yes,
right?
yes. You get, yeah.
It's almost like an addiction.
Yeah.
I notice that sometimes when things are too calm, I'll make a frenzy.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
you know, I kind of have this inner thermometer that, at 68, things get a little cold, so I do some good work and I get on things. But when things get to 73 or 74, all of a sudden I start acting frenzy and I get a little overwhelmed. I start to, right, and I can really sabotage my own life. And
Yeah.
I didn't notice that before until I sat down with some coaches like yourself that can really help me point out, you realize you're causing your own drama here. You don't need any of that, right? You're fine. Just take a. It's okay to take a breath, right? It's okay.
It's so important to get that external perspective,
Yeah.
Anthony. You're great at this. I do this all the time. A lot of people know the power of having someone else, whether it's a coach or a friend or someone, to be able to hold up a mirror for you. Because we get too close to ourselves, we get too close to our stuff, and we don't even realize sometimes what we're doing. And I think that that's very powerful to have someone that you can go to show you what's happening for you. And I get that way too, and having a desire for that energy, right? And so that energy can come in a lot of different ways. I'm also an adventurer. So I'd rather, jump out of an airplane than be in an elevator any day of the week. you know?
But I noticed that now. My sense is that for thousands or maybe even millions of years, we were tribal, and you had an elder that you walked with. You had someone that loved you and was responsible for helping you through life, right?
Mhm.
They would guide you, and you were part of their tribe, and you were a useful part of their family, and they even marked you, and there was ceremonial stuff that really gave you some great input. So and there was trustable advice that was wonderful, and you always knew that that person was there. And as we got the guides from that, it was like a great spot to be in, right? It was great to have that was wise elder there. Well, the Industrial Revolution comes along, those elders go to work. We're left home watching TV, playing video games. And
Mhm.
today we're getting that same feedback loop through Facebook, through Instagram, likes and follows. And, it's not the same as having someone who I trust,
Yeah.
who's there, and you can count on it. And to me, now that's the important part of finding a great coach or a
Yeah.
therapist or somebody that
Mhm.
you can go to and you can put your hand out and you know that they're there to support you in a way that's going to benefit your life and you can trust that, right? You
Yes.
can bring someone on who, and everybody's got a different flavor, right? So finding that, I think finding that really does need to be a mission, is to find
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
For me, it's a tribe, right? I've got a group of
Yeah.
men around me that am family members and lead and just coaches like yourself that that come into the organization and they all look at me and they're able to hold that mirror up because I've got a built-in liar, my ego,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Tells me that everything's fine, you're fine. It doesn't want to change. It's scared of changing, right? Every time I get an update from my freaking iPhone, it gets mad, you know. And if it gets mad about an update for the iPhone, imagine what it says when I need to change some behaviors or thoughts or way I eat
Mhm.
or the way I drive or the way that I pay my taxes or right,
Yeah.
all of those things that are uh, you know uh, real. I have a justifier that justifies those behaviors, and then it becomes kind of a weight that I don't realize that I'm carrying, that it's not so useful.
You know, um, I think particularly now, and you alluded to this, with how disconnected we all are, how we have, whether it's social media or what happened with COVID, or we feel so isolated, so alone. And I think it's even more important now than ever before to consciously choose that tribe, because otherwise you're just going to be at the mercy of what might be out there, right? That negativity, people who don't have maybe the best of intentions, but you can consciously choose, just like we were talking about earlier about other things in our lives. You can consciously choose the people that are further down the path than you, that have done something that you want to do, that lift you up, that make you feel good, that make you laugh. It's so important to have people in your life like that. I have been blessed with having mentors, and I'm not afraid to ask. I think that some of the students that I work with, when I tell them, "Hey, why don't you reach out on LinkedIn to so and so?" They're like, "What? They don't have the time for me. They won't want to hear from me." I'm like, "Just give it a shot." And then they get back to them, because people, if you've gotten to a certain point, for the most part, people recognize that they didn't get there alone, and that now it's their turn to return the favor. It's their turn to give back what was given to them to help them get to where they are along the way. And Anthony, I just want to go back to something that you were talking about sabotage a little bit ago,
Mm,
because I was thinking about something that I have done to myself in my business. I sabotage myself.
mm,
Comes from a financial belief, a belief that I had that I didn't realize I had. But I had this belief that I shouldn't exceed the success of my family, right? And so for a long, long time, I would work and I would do well, I would do well. And then all of a sudden, I do these things to sabotage my business, right? And when I worked with someone to understand where that came from, I realized, well, they wouldn't want me to sabotage my success, because I had this feeling that I would lose some type of love or connection to them if I did. So the belief was completely wrong from every perspective, but I had learned it and I was taking action according to it. And that took me several years to be able to overcome. And thank goodness I did. It comes back though. If we're not vigilant about it, sometimes those things come back, and I have to constantly be thinking about it.
but it's funny 'cause is it kinda like a whack-a-mole game for you?
Yes, a little bit.
It never stops. I feel like I bum
Yep.
myself out because I think they're supposed to. I think I'm supposed to do all this work, and somewhere I'm gonna get to a place where I'm like, "All right, I'm pure as snow, and I'm gonna be able to walk around like, and I'm omnipotent. I never will get mad. I will be able to help you with everything I'm here to help. Like, don't worry, I'm here to help." And the truth is, that's about as much a lie as I can carry, right? Because they come and go. The characteristics I have, even my best characteristics, come and go.
Yeah.
Some of my worst characteristics come and go, right?
Mhm.
I'll work on them and go, well, that's not serving me, and they'll go away for a minute, and then they'll pop right back up, like, oh
Yeah.
my god, how did that? Where did that come from?
Come from.
And sometimes I get a little funny, but like, how come that keeps happening? And I just
Yeah.
think that it's hard to stay that conscious all the time, to stay there and have grace for ourselves. Right? Like I'm not going to be perfect. The best I will do is really keep trying. And if I
Mhm.
stay in the mode of working on it every day, staying as conscious as I can. Now, I think there's some things that we do to help that. What are the things you do that can help those behaviors?
Well, if you're working on something like what we're talking about, and you've come to become aware of a belief or a judgment or assumption or a fear or something that's been guiding you, and you get rid of it, what happens? You've created space, you've created a gap.
Mm,
And if you don't take the time to fill that space with something else, it's just calling out to that old belief to come jumping back in again, right?
mm,
Excuse me. So taking the time to think through, how can I reframe this? How can I choose something that's going to serve me and others better? And so let's say the financial one, that I will lose love if I exceed a certain success. I can replace that with, the more abundant my life is, the more I will be able to serve others. And so if I do that, and then I for me personally, I'm a visual person. I like to put my reminders up around, so I've got things on my computer screen or in the mirror or whatever to remind me of things, especially in the beginning stages of shifting a pattern, because you have to be reminded and be consistent with it. So that helps a lot.
I put them on notes,
Oh, look at you. Yes.
and I
Yes.
keep in my pocket. Right?
Yeah.
So I put the character defect on one side, and I'll put the other thing I want to work on
There
on
you
the other
go.
side. I keep my pocket, and it just for some reason I kind of feel like it's there, and
Yeah.
there's always one or two of them in my pocket, and it was kind of I just fold them up. I keep an 8.5 or a three by five cards on my desk and
Yeah.
write them on there. I'm like, and there you go. You were. Oh, maybe you should check out your fear around when you do income statements.
Mhm.
As a leader, I sit with the accounting team, right? There's a lot. I have triggers all over that department. Every time I walk in that room, one, am I going to be, am I good enough? Am I, there are
Yes.
all kinds of stuff that happens, and I got to be
Mm.
aware of that. And when I going to have an accounting meeting, I've got to take a couple extra breaths just to
Yeah.
sit down so I can be present and not check out around all the triggers are going to pop up, because I'm going to see people's expenses and how much money we're spending, and all of those things for me I notice a trigger. So if I'm going to walk into
Yes.
a meeting with them and I want to stay present, I got to
Mhm.
walk a little slower, stay just a little bit more cognizant of where I'm going and what the trigger reactions that might pop up. Because if I go in that room and I start to get triggered and I blow it all up, I have no chance of doing any work. Right?
Mm.
There's no good. There's not an outcome
Right.
from that triggered state that rarely ever works. Right? There might be a couple of, most of the time it causes a real deficit in people's relationships. Right? And I have a real lack of once I get triggered, I have a real lack of ability to see a solution that really will get created from that triggered space. So
Yeah.
it's always surprises the the work on this brain up here, and as we do it, you know, talk to me about the new book you have out. Let's talk about that real quick and kind of a little bit more.
Sure, sure. So the newest one is called Where's the Office? Moving Today's Leaders from What Is to What Can Be.
Yep.
And it really came about because of what's going on in the world from a standpoint of people needing to figure out how to lead in new environments. And do I have people in person? Do I have virtual teams? Do I have to do a hybrid option? How can I be more purposeful with it? And it's looking at the leader leading from the inside. And when you carry those leadership qualities and strategies with you, you can lead from any environment. So it's really focusing in that capacity. And it's been an absolute joy. And I've loved getting feedback from people on knowing, oh, wait, there's a tool that I can use. There's a framework that can help me through this process. I love that. So that's been a lot of fun.
I there that the this new environment of workplace. I was watching a TV ad the other day for ZipRecruiter,
Yeah.
and it kind of spoke to everything that's happening to every company that's out there, right? If someone even has a bad day, they can jump on ZipRecruiter and have a job in 15 minutes.
Mm,
Right? I mean, it just feels that way, right? You're out there. There's always, so you're up against, you know, people already having lack of focus,
yeah.
right? Most of the people that work for us today are so overwhelmed with everything they've got going on in their life that when they
Yeah.
show up at the office, they're somewhat conscious, but and that's not even drugs and alcohol. I'm talking about just life gets lifey.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. And it's very powerful to know that you're not alone in this, that other people feel these same things. And I really want to come back to what you were talking about just a minute ago about the power of presence. When you can become present with yourself and how you're feeling, kind of saying, okay, what is my body telling me right now? When you can become present in your conversations, just putting no notes, just like, here I am, I'm looking at you, I'm talking to you. It elevates the relationship so much. And the same thing, if you have kids, if anyone has kids out there, they crave
Mm,
presence.
mm.
Just get down on the floor and look at them and listen to them and laugh with them. It transforms the relationship.
It's hard to see that when we're in this
Yeah.
Facebook life. Like
Yeah.
I gotta go international traveling with my kids to be successful.
Yeah, exactly.
I gotta do this over the top stuff. And like you
It's not
said,
what they remember. It's not what they remember.
that presence, that way of being with them, that
Yes.
seeing them, right?
Yes.
Just being present and seeing them for who they are
Yes.
rather than who you want them to be or all the other stuff we put on top of them or what the Facebook world says they should be like. Just being with them and the way they are and not try to change them at all. Just being there. Now that's a hard concept because I didn't come from that. I came from a mother who wanted to guide me, and if she just, you know, talked to me loud enough, I would get to there. And maybe some of that is in the nature of parenting. To we want better for our kids, so we put these on top of them. But a lot of times I find it, everything my kids needed to learn from me, they did by the time they were 7. And now my job is really to be with them, kind of be with them as they go through their life and be there for them and see
Mhm.
them. So,
Yes.
it's fun as we make these, as we continue to go through these different experiences, human, and you know, I have this love for you. Your work is abundant. The people that who you are in your life, it's just wonderful to have you on the show. You know,
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure, Anthony. You know, I love talking with you, and I'm a full proponent of everything you're putting out there.
well, Heather Hansen O'Neill, I need where are people going to contact you? So let's get some
Okay.
contact info. So
Sure.
where are they catching up with you?
You can find me anywhere under Heather Hansen O'Neill. So the website is Heather Hansen O'Neill. That's how.com that you can find me on LinkedIn. I am totally open to people reaching out to me, asking me a follow-up question on anything that I said here on LinkedIn. You can do that. You can email me, heather@heatherhanseno'neill.com. You can find the book there, whatever you need, you'll be able to find me. I'm out there a lot.
You are definitely covered. You definitely have got the world covered on the internet, and it's quite impressive. Your work is great. Your show is great. Let's talk about your podcast. People can find the podcast at.
Yes, From Fear to Fire. You can find it on iTunes. You can find it on the website as well. And I just want to give a plug for the show that's going to be coming out in a couple of weeks that Anthony did.
Oh yeah,
And it was amazing. So you're definitely going to want to check that one out. If I do say so myself, you were fabulous.
we had fun. We had lots of fun doing
Yeah, we
that,
did.
and as we always do. Like at the time we always have together is great,
Mhm.
and it's great service. So thank you very much for being on the show. I would look forward to having you on again. Every time you have a book out, I want another shot at having you on the show.
Okay, be on the lookout.
I know you're always writing some. So thanks for being on the show today. I am
Thank you.
grateful. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Yafe audience, as always, if you like the show, please take a second right now, just right now, hit that like button and subscribe. It means the world to Heather and I. It means the whole world to us, and it just lets us know that you got through it. So thanks for being here.